After spending over 80 hours playing the entirety of this game on stream, I've finally finished Yakuza Like a Dragon. As a disclaimer, this video will be entirely spoiler free. I will only be featuring story footage from the first hour of the game and lightly touching on story elements so as not to spoil things for those interested. The gameplay footage is from a little later in the game for the sake of being thorough, but wholly divorced from the narrative. I'll be discussing things such as story, gameplay, and more in this video, and I'll be covering said bases to the best of my ability. Additionally, I have not received any review copies, nor is this a sponsored video. I've also not seen any reviews of Like a Dragon prior to making this as not to sway my opinion. This is all coming from the perspective of a longtime fan of the series, and all thoughts I have are formulated on my own. Yakuza Like a Dragon was one of my most anticipated releases of this year. As a huge fan of the series, I was looking forward to seeing Ryuga Gotoku's studio take on the traditional turn-based RPG. The result of their efforts is something truly unique, creating something with its own style, identity, and heart. I have so much I want to say about it, and I'm happy to say it left me super satisfied. Taking place after the events of Yakuza 6, The Song of Life, Like a Dragon places us in the shoes of the starry-eyed Ichiban Kasuga, a huge Dragon Quest nerd and local Arakawa family jobber. He also looks like he could be my cousin. Ichiban has a heart of gold and often tries to do what he feels is right. He is loyal to a fault, hard-headed, and extremely passionate. This is in contrast to Kiryu's stoic and cool demeanor, which sets Ichiban apart from him. Much like Kiryu though, Ichiban must take the fall for someone in his family. He spends nearly 2 decades in prison, and once his sentence is over, Ichiban finds out his entire world has changed. Together with his friends, Ichiban has to claw his way out of the gutter and discover the secrets of what's hiding in the shadows of the underworld. Without spoiling anything, I was super pleased with the story of this game. The team's stellar storytelling is present as always, highlighting their strengths in writing fun and interesting characters with excellent chemistry. The game also talks about social issues such as poverty, the stigma regarding sex work, and people who are at the mercy of society systems. The story is enhanced by amazing voice work, and I highly recommend checking out the English dub. The voice actors do a great job, and things such as karaoke were lovingly dubbed by the cast.
I'm gonna level up, be the best that I can be, and I'm not gonna stop questing until I'm a hero.
There were scenes towards the end that got me all choked up just because the acting was so freaking powerful. Having finished the story, I can say there's a lot to unpack here from a storytelling standpoint, and many moments and fights just stuck with me for a super long time after they happened. Like, I was thinking about a lot of this after I finished it. Speaking of fighting though, Like a Dragon pivots from the traditional beat-em-up style gameplay the series is known for, and instead turns the combat into a turn-based RPG. Yakuza has always had RPG elements such as character progression and even random encounters, but this is the first time the game has fully leaned into the genre it borrows mechanics from. I'm happy to say that people worried about the genre shift should rest easy. While not wanting a beat-em-up to suddenly become an RPG is a totally reasonable thing, thankfully, this works. Once battles begin, the screen blurs in traditional RPG fashion, and the goons you walked by transform into caricatures of themselves. The localization team knocks it out of the park with these enemy names, with some highlights being Hands Thrower, Twitchy Streamer, and Hungry Hungry Homeless. This feels quite similar to Earthbound, with both games featuring outlandish enemies with funny names. These similarities extend to the weapon types you can use, such as bats, handbags, and umbrellas, and even a giant microphone. Combat itself is very straightforward, following traditional RPG conventions. There are physical and elemental attacks that consume MP, and there are also actions that don't take up a turn. These are things such as kicking bikes, cones, and signs towards an enemy for extra damage. If you're near an item, a character will automatically pick it up and use it, similar to the Beast Style's passives in Yakuza 0 and Kiwami. Combat feels fun and proactive due to the frenetic nature of it. Attacks need mashing or precise inputs to squeeze more damage out. Damage can be mitigated with perfect button presses. Because of this, combat doesn't get stale. There are even summons in this game with various effects that are massively helpful in harder parts of the game. Personally, part of the fun for me was seeing what kind of surprises and treats there were around the corner. Enemies skip like jackasses, make rude remarks, and even mad dog you. Your party members also have their own personal skills that you can see more of once the job system unlocks later on. You have a few at the start, with some being unlocked the more you progress with your characters, such as with their bonds, their normal levels, and also Ichiban's personal social stats. You can freely switch jobs with no penalty, and progression will be maintained. Some skills that are learned through jobs, denoted through the red nodes, can be kept if you switch jobs, allowing for more flexibility in combat. Lastly, you can learn more about your party members by bonding over a drink, or even little conversations they have in the overworld. This reminds me most of Bravely Default's party chat function, where they chat about little things that occur as they walk around. Also, long battles have been transformed into dungeons, putting a spin on the usual building clearing affair. There's so much going on here mechanically, but all of it's gradually introduced as not to overwhelm the player. Despite my love for the combat, it does have its flaws. The encounter rate is high, feeling about similar to Yakuza 5, and some enemies can annoyingly start battles from across the street. The camera also does zoom in a little too tightly in smaller areas, blocking the action, and at times, characters stop and run around after a spell is selected. It's like they're thinking about what they're doing next. Characters also get stuck on level objects after spells are cast, running into the object until they pop out. It is more hilarious than it is frustrating, so I'll chalk that up to Dragon Engine jank. Regardless of this, the combat stays fun and engaging. It's forgiving to newcomers and veterans of the genre alike, and I feel like they were really trying to ease the worries of the people who aren't keen on the genre shift. Outside of the combat, there's also a whole lot to do. Yokohama is absolutely massive, and there's so much to do in this game. There are completion rewards like always, as well as hidden treasures and some secret shops that encourage player exploration. Sub-stories are back as well, and they were all pretty strong. They showcase the hilarity and the heart that the series became famous for on YouTube and also the bird site. Additionally, there's a whole cavalcade of minigames and side stories to do. Collecting cans helps you pick up rare items you can't find in stores. Catching a movie and fighting off sleep gives you a boost in stats. Karaoke is back with new and familiar songs. There's even kart racing with its own set of rivals and cups to conquer. When you're tired of cracking skulls with your bat, try hitting some dingers at the batting cages. Lastly, there's also Ichiban Confections, this game's business side story. Like a Dragon's business side story feels overwhelming at first, but extremely satisfying once it all clicks. Having done real estate in Zero more than once, it feels like what real estate should have been, as it's much more streamlined. Confections even has its own set of minigames attached to it. Also, Eri is cute, and I love her. These side activities in Like a Dragon help this already massive game feel even bigger, and you can easily sink hours into things such as Dragon Kart and Ichiban Confections. Alright, in no particular order or structure, these are the things I absolutely loved about this game. Like a Dragon is absolutely gorgeous. Yokohama has a lot of visual variety, with some areas being dingy, prim and proper, or even bathed in neon. As of making this video, the PlayStation 5 version isn't out yet, but the PS4 versions blew me away. I felt more compelled to take photos with the in-game smartphone app, even decorating my friends' faces with filters. Facial models are also some of the best in the whole series. The music is also mwah, chef's kiss. The sounds range from somber guitar tunes for the serious bits, or some punchy EDM for some serious battles. There's also returning tracks from older games, some with newer remixes. Lastly, there's a lot of little odds and ends for veterans who have played through the entire series. My favorite being that the Millennium Tower is still being built in the first chapter of the game. This is just a good game, man. I don't think there's anything I had a serious problem with, I think. It's a celebration of what makes the series great, and it's a grand slam to me. I'm writing this long after I've finished, and I've had a lot of time to sit down and digest it all. A lot of themes, songs, and moments from this game are insanely memorable, and I'm glad I got to experience it all for the first time on a hot mic. While I think it's the perfect place to jump in if you're curious about the series, I highly recommend also giving the previous entries a try, if you loved what Like a Dragon offered you. And if you're someone who put the hours in to play the series up to this point, you likely won't be let down. That's because Like a Dragon does not disappoint. Guys, I'm gonna fucking vomit. Oh my god, I'm so excited.